Okay, I think we're rolling.
Great.
All right, so
So,
book two.
book two. Wait, should we introduce ourselves again, or is that like
Oh yeah, that's a good call.
okay? I'll start. I'm Reed Jordan. I live in Brooklyn, and my primary directive is to meet N.K. Jemisin on the street someday in life.
Yo, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Lawrence Barriner. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, and my primary objective in life right now, I would say, is to learn how to time travel effectively.
Yes.
Yeah, which I
Yes.
have started experimenting with,
Oh,
both time traveling to the past, and shortly I will practice honing my future time traveling skills. Yeah.
so book two.
So book
Um,
two, Adulthood Rites, Octavia Butler.
oh yes. Oh wait, let me show mine. Show mine. Oh, this
Oh,
will
you
count.
got the
I got the
yeah,
trilogy. Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
I got mine from good old MIT libraries. It's like ancient and it has like, the hardcover
So you can see
and
we can
then
check it out.
the
Oh,
actual
whoa.
book on the inside.
Okay.
Pretty cool. I forgot that people did this with paperbacks. Anyway, yeah, so maybe we start with like a rundown of the book because I finished it like a month ago.
Yeah, me too. Um, yeah, I'd happy to start and maybe we jump in
Yeah.
behind this stuff. So we fast forward maybe I don't know, it seems like 20 years or so from when Lilith was on the ship with the Owen Clyde, Onkley. How do you pronounce it?
I say
Owen,
Collie.
Owen Collie.
Yeah.
And they've now started basically the human hybrid Owen Collie colony on Earth, where they are beginning to prepare basically the future generation of human Owen Collie hybrids, and simultaneously basically to prepare for the extinction of humanity on the other side of the coin. And so there are these trade villages where the humans and Oncollies live side by side and are creating the next generation of what's going to live on genetically, which is their hybrid humans, their constructs. But there are also the resistor villages,
Yeah.
where it's just the humans um, who have decided they do not want to participate in any of this crazy Oankali gene trading stuff. And so they live alone in their own resistor villages. They don't get any of the like amazing perks from Oankali. The benefits of like
Perks.
having all this food and like just not having to worry about basically their like physical bodies, like all the physical modifications. But and they're left alone for the most part. Um, but they do not get to have offspring. They are, yeah,
They're sterile.
can't reproduce.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do you want to take from there? We can start with Akin and.
Yeah. So I was saying akin just because it's like
Akin?
how I think about like kinfolk.
Yeah, Akin.
Although I think they actually talk about it in the book and they like pronounce it in a different way than even that. Anywho, so akin is the first male human-born construct, and that's sort of a big deal because that's like he's going to be necessary to create future human-born male constructs, but it's sort of like a big risk, like in terms of the whole gene trading thing. Like the Owen Collie are really worried about what he's going to be like. The males particularly have like a really deep manifestation of what they call, oh my gosh, what's it called? The contradiction.
Yeah.
And the contradiction is, well, whatever, we can get into that in a second, but Akin is born as a baby and then gets stolen by some resistors and then grows up among the resistors and then sort of goes back. And the story, the arc through the story is basically like, you know, Akin's coming of age, going from being a baby to getting ready to go through his first transformation, or through his transformation, and then he goes through his transformation and then is tasked with settling Mars. But the trick is he wants to take the resistor humans to Mars. He doesn't want to take like the Oankali human bred species to Mars. He like thinks it's his job to give humans another chance at existing in the universe without destroying themselves, which they did the first time in the first book. Which is why the Oankali showed up in the first place. They like came to save us. Yeah, so the book sort of ends with humans being given Mars and Akin coming up with like a team of people to take with him.
Sky Squad.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's like the arc of the book.
Right? Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
I think what I enjoyed, like overarching what I really enjoyed about reading this book is that after reading the first book, I really understand how the Oankali think. And so it's much easier to just predict how they would respond to certain behaviors and actions, and to like understand the logic of their entire, like their own internal logic of the entire system they've built up.
Yep.
And so it made me feel like at the end of the first book of Dawn, I was just trying to understand like what are these creatures, and like how do they see their existence? And they spelled out with, you know, the desire to like preserve and protect life. But then through the second book, I think you really start to understand just like what are these things and why are they doing all of this? It becomes very clear.
Yeah, why?
Yeah, it's they see, and this is something I want to talk about, I guess, a little later. It's like their overarching goal is just constantly protecting life, and doing that through like constant exploration of other forms of life to like harness the best of it and strip away the worst of it, and then create new beings from that. And so anything that could like harm life in their view, any sorts of violence towards life in their view, like must be like stripped away and like isolated, and then that needs to be actually destroyed. So they have a very like, I think, narrow view of what like violence is, but that view is like what utterly drives them: just protect life, minimize violence that can hurt life.
Ooh, okay. So I want to definitely come back to the violence thing because I had not thought about that. But the like protect life thing. So I fully agree that that's like definitely how I interpreted exactly what they were saying. Their like primal drive as a species is to save life in all the forms that it takes. What's interesting for me as I was thinking about this book as it relates to sort of our reality is the mechanisms by which they identify what life is worth saving and what's worth not saving is difference. Like they're basically attracted to difference. And like anything that seems like there's an opportunity to explore something
Mhm.
other than them, they're like
Mhm.
all about it. Like they're super
Yeah.
fascinated by it. Like I remember there's a scene where Akin is, oh no, they're talking about the, oh my gosh, now I forget how I was saying it, the like genderless third parent. It's like the
The Uloi.
yeah, Uloi,
Yeah.
Uloi. Um, those people, like when they run across a person or like a species that's different, they're like totally enraptured. Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
can't think about anything else.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh my God, all I want to do is like explore that thing. Yeah, they just, and like Akin, and like, so that's what the tentacles are for.
Mm.
Like the tentacles are like these sensory organs to help them like explore not just surface level aesthetic differences, but deep
Yeah.
like genetic differences.
Yeah.
Um, and I want to maybe come back to this later, but one of the things they talk about in a way that I think is sort of interesting and tricky is like they think that as the genes of a species determine the species' purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that that's like a predetermination thing
Mm-hmm.
that I want to come back to. But anyways, they're attracted to difference in genetic material. And I was just thinking about that as it relates, obviously, I was thinking about it as it relates to like human society and what's happening, maybe what's happened forever in our species. But I feel like what needs to happen right now in order for our species to survive is I think we actually need to be more like the Owen Collie. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think we actually need to seek out difference as something that is like deeply enticing and exciting and attractive, as opposed to seeing difference as fearful or
Mm-hmm.
like something that needs to be destroyed. Because usually that's what we do as a species. It's like those people are different for whatever constructed reason that we've made up. We must destroy them.
Mm. I love that observation. And I think, like, what I was thinking about as you're saying that is that even when like humans do explore difference, it's usually through very like broad categorization, and we just do that in order to like make sense of our and get by in our daily world of like there's these type of people, there's these type of people, and there's those type of people, and those like categories is like how the human mind works. It's how we're able to like process information, but rarely do we actually like explore like difference within categories. So like even when we are able to like make sense of like recognize difference, it's just like a survival mechanism. It's not a way of like thriving and growth. It's just we needed to get by in our world.
Yeah. When I started to think about that, I was like, oh my gosh, that, yeah, how do we learn that? How do we learn how
Yeah.
to see difference, not via, like, not as a thing to be destroyed, and as you say, not as a thing to help us continue to fit in our current worldview, which is category based.
Yeah.
But like, how do we learn the next thing, which is to see difference as like a generative resource? I don't really know, but I definitely was like,
Yeah.
as I was thinking about Akin and his like weird little tongue,
Yeah.
he's just like licking stuff. I was just like, yeah, I guess in some, actually, this is a side note, but now when I think about babies, just like putting things in their mouths, I was just like, is that an alien baby?
Who's that tongue?
I was like, are you Akin? What's happening?
Ooh.
Okay, anyway. I'm gonna switch headphones real quick. I just bought
Okay.
these AirPods and they're pretty great, but they're like acting a little weird right now.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's actually a lot better.
Oh, great. Did you mute yourself? Oh, wait, are you muted? Did you mute yourself? Okay, hold on. This is all me. Okay, are you there?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Oh, did you have like more to say about the difference stuff?
Well, I guess I was really interested in. I don't, but I'm interested now in tying the difference thing back to violence, and maybe coming through a back door back to your like point about identifying what life is worth saving.
Yeah. I think so the way I saw, I'll just start with the violence piece. Like the way I saw violence unfolding in this book was an entryway into seeing what I think are some pretty deep contradictions among the Oankali.
Yeah.
And that they think of humans as intelligent and hierarchical, and that leads to violence and destruction.
Right, which is the contradiction.
Which is their contradiction, the human contradiction.
Right, and like that's in their minds, it's like in our DNA. Like that's where the problem is.
It's like that is the source of everything wrong with humans.
Yeah.
Yet I think the Oankali are like very much willing to use many forms of violence in order to pursue what they perceive to be the protection of life. Like I think the really best example in this book that was really jarring for me to read was the separation of Akin from his sister. I can't remember her name. Do you know her name?
I don't remember her name, but I'll find it real quick.
Yeah. And so
I don't think I could pronounce it.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. So they knew Akin had been abducted and then sold to this resistor group, and they had separated, and they knew he was there, and then Oankali come to a consensus conclusion that they should not rescue him in order for Akin to fully learn about humanity, basically. And that the price for Akin was going to be an inability to fully, I don't know what the word is, integrate and be connected with his sister in the way that his species is meant to be. But they saw that as like a very small price to pay for like the broader learning that needs to happen in order to pursue their genetic project. You can see very clearly, like later on in the book, this separation, like it's caused enormous like pain and hurt to Akin. Like there's the part in the book where he passes on the sensation to another Oankali of what it feels like to have the like kind of jarring like gratingness of not being connected with his sister, and like the inherent like wrong it feels in his body. And yeah, it's just so clear that like that species is willing to do violence to its own, yet does not see that as a sort of violence. And I think that is a very like deep contradiction in the Oankali that I'm not sure if they even like recognized.
That's interesting. Yeah. I definitely don't think they see it that way.
Yeah.
But I hear you. I feel like another example, actually, and I don't know if it is violent in the same way, but or I don't know if this particular thing that I'm about to say counts as violence. But it's pretty interesting to me that they like once a human couple bonds to an Uloi.
Yeah.
The human couple can no longer have sex on their own. They're like not even interested in like touching each other.
Yeah.
Without the Uloi being there. And in my mind, that's just like straight up like sexual repression or like oppression. So I don't know if it counts as violence, but it definitely in the book, and as I think about like what that would be like in my own life, I would just be like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean this thing that is so much a part of who I am is no longer possible.
Yeah. I think it's because the Oankali don't see any complexity of humans beyond contradiction. They don't see like all the desires and needs of the human and like the potential fullness of humanity. This is all like second order stuff compared to the first order contradiction.
Yeah. And their desire, like their interest in, as you were saying before, like take the good stuff from the species and use it to like perpetuate their own genetic project.
Yeah.
It's also really strange, I guess. Maybe it's not strange. I just thought that the Oankali were more like invincible, or like I thought they were just like more all-knowing after the first book. And there were some moments where like there were mistakes made in the first book, and you sort of see that, like where an Oankali tries to wake up a human, and the human just like freaks the fuck out and like kills itself or other people. And that has like a really negative effect on the Oankali. But in this book, you see like a lot more like fallibility. And I feel like the fallibility shows up as violent acts, like whether it's, you know, a human getting old or humans raiding each other in villages, and the Oankali just like not actually doing anything about it. Like, I don't know, there's this, I feel like there's a strange connection between inability, I guess it's just fallibility, and the promulgation of violence, which I don't really know if that means anything more than just that, but I definitely noticed that this book was a lot more violent.
Yeah. It's like how these incredibly complex, genetically complex beings not have like some simple insights into the action, like the outcome of some of their actions.
Yeah. Seems like it could be so basic, and there's like nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway. So what else? What else is interesting?
I've been thinking about, I really love the question, like the thought experiment basically of, first, would humans actually not have a desire to live and to experience the world if they weren't able to reproduce? Like, I'm curious about that question. I'm also curious about the question posed at the end, is like what would it take for this human contradiction to be subsumed by some other like sort of first order survival need, and like what would be the conditions that would allow for that contradiction to be like suppressed, maybe not eliminated, because it seems that like Atkin is like even unsure of himself that that contradiction will ever be like eliminated or fully addressed, but like under the right conditions it can be suppressed. And like his hypothesis is basically that like they're gonna go to Mars, and like shit can be so hard to live in like Mars, and like everyone, there's gonna be like a flattening of hierarchy in some ways, because like everyone's be in the same like terrible living conditions and the same like need to like cooperate just to like survive, but like there's going to be cooperation and interdependence just based upon this sheer like deprivation. So I'm just like, I've been thinking about like what other, like if I were to create a scenario like going to Mars or somewhere else, like what would have to be in place for like humans to get along?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if like severe deprivation is that. I don't think, I'm really curious to see what would happen, but yeah, I don't know. Like, what do you think? I guess for you, those questions, like do humans just need children in order to like survive and like enjoy the world? Or basically just like lose meaning of life, or like what does it take to survive and like recreate humanity without sexual contradiction?
Yeah. So I definitely have been thinking related to this book and not about this question, that the fact that intelligence and hierarchy are like incompatible traits.
Yeah.
And there's an episode, I can't remember if I talked about this last time, but there's an episode of this podcast called Versus.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an interview with this guy whose name I'm forgetting. But he's like a brilliant poet and lyricist, and he also thinks about that particular thing. Like I think it's in the poem that he read on the episode. He's like, intelligence and hierarchy are incompatible, and as long as hierarchy, which is older in terms of like our evolution, like hierarchy is a more ingrained characteristic of our species. It's in like many species. As long as hierarchy exists in the species, it will always win intelligence, and our intelligence will always be used to perpetuate hierarchy. You know, and so I don't think it's possible for humans to continue to exist on the planet as we do. I don't think it's possible for the human species to survive if we continue to be hierarchical. And I think that's real in like our world, and also in this like Xenogenesis world. You know, I can't even totally say why, but it just really resonates with me that intelligence will always be used to reinscribe hierarchy as long as hierarchy exists. And I don't know how much you worked with Professor Caesar McDowell when you were at Dust, but I took a bunch of his classes and I've worked with him in the past, and he always talks about this idea, which I think he's quoting from somewhere, but maybe he made it up. He talks about like the hierarchy of human value as being the biggest problem that our species faces, and being one of the most significant reason as to why our like economic and governance systems don't work. It's like democracy can be as beautiful as it wants to be, as maybe could socialism be, or communism. Like maybe all these systems could work in theory. The problem is we always reinscribe hierarchy, and we rank humans, like we value people differently based on where they are in the hierarchy.
Yeah.
And that is what fucks up all of our big systems. You know, so I've heard this idea in a couple places, and I really think the hierarchy has to go. I don't really have any great examples of non-hierarchical societies, but I do really believe that it is only possible to be non-hierarchical at certain scales. And I think those are like smaller scales. I think it's possible to I think this is like this comes from lots of places, but the one place I'm thinking about most right now is oh my God, what's the organizer? It's an organizer who was like a big deal. I think he's was from Chicago. He's like a big organizing framework that people are sort of still recovering from. Oh my gosh. Okay, whatever. He has this idea of cells, that like groups of organizers should operate as like independent cells. And each cell can be like self-determining.
Oh, Saul Alinsky.
Oh my gosh, yes, Alinsky. Why could I not think of his name? Anyways, you have like your little cells, and your cells operate on their own. And when you need to cooperate, the cells can like come together and align behind a particular vision. And then once the vision is achieved, they like decentralize again. But I really think that the size of the cell. Like, in order for hierarchy to not exist, the size of the cell has to be certain. It has to be small. Okay, I'm going to stop blabbing in 1 second. But the last thing on this is there's this number called Dunbar's number. Do you know about Dunbar's number?
No. Oh.
It was a number that was identified. I think he was a scientist, or he was a psychologist or something. And his sense is that, or his research pointed to the fact that once you get past about 150 people in a human group or organization, people stop being able to hold deep relationship with individuals. Like they start forgetting people's faces.
Well,
trust starts to break down.
Yeah.
Relationships just start being more frayed. It's like 150 people is about the number of people that a single individual can like maintain good relationships with. So just coming back to the cell thing, like I think groups of 150 is sort of like the right size. Okay, that's my theory spiel.
Whoa, that's super. Okay, this is kind of related. It might be a stretch, but
yeah, do it.
That's related because I took a course on urban sociology, and one of the things we really talked about for a long time was like what started to happen to humans when cities started becoming a thing.
Yeah,
and it was like, oh, you no longer know just the 5 farmers in your area.
Yeah.
And now there's more people than you could possibly ever meet or know in a day.
Yeah.
And industrial revolution and onset of spread of capitalism and massive inequality and new hierarchies emerge in this process. But one of the things that urban sociologists were concerned about in particular was what just happens to humans when there's too many other of us around. What happens to our psyche when we just see all these strangers on a train and we can't possibly make sense of them within our entire worldview. And so it's around that time when people start doing this categorizing of I can't possibly know everybody, and so I have to make categories so I can kind of make sense of all these random people I see on the street. I'm not sure how it entirely fits into what you're going there, but it's at what point can we do systems of trust and codependence and knowing of people just break down. There's just too many people for it to happen.
For sure. I mean, it seems really related to me. And I think it just is about that. It's about sort of a deep, for me, it's like a structural analysis question. It seems like you're poking, maybe this is what was happening in the class, or maybe not, but sort of poking at what are the structures that make human thriving possible? Mm-hmm. And are cities in some way inherently destructive or inherently opposed, in opposition to human thriving, if human thriving requires things like trust and dependence and interdependence? And in my mind, we can't go backwards. I doubt we're going to devolve back to hunter-gatherer societies or tiny pods of people. But I do think we need to integrate the knowledge of that reality into the way that we design our spaces and places in cities. Like building size, for example.
This is making me think about how I see myself in cities, or or when I lived in Boston, of my cells were networks of people and these networks had different sort of focal nodes of people who kind of all knew each other, but then they're like
Yep.
in between those nodes. And sometimes nodes didn't really connect with each other, but like I felt like within my system of a network, like I could see how all the cells work together. And so I would love to like see the mental map of someone else and how they see their network. Like they see it to be the same of like, oh, I have all these like cells out there. Some are close, some are less close. But like, what if I could see someone's like cell network and they can see mine, and then we could like find where the overlap is there.
Yeah.
That could be like such a powerful way to like bring people of like minds together. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that there are people who are doing work that's in that lane for sure. I'm really interested in like network theory. And I know that that is happening for sure. There's a podcast episode that, or maybe it's a Facebook experiment that was called like 3 degrees of separation. I think Facebook basically said, you know, because there's over a billion users on it, people use, you know, there was an idea about like 6 degrees of separation, that like every person is no more than 5 connections away from every other person. And Facebook was like, that's not true anymore. It's like 3. And we can demonstrate it with our data.
Whoa.
Anyways, networks are
Yeah.
fascinating, cool things. Deeply agree.
So I feel like at some point we need to really talk about like sexuality and gender throughout all of this. And I don't really know what the entryway is, but there's like so much to like pull apart.
Yeah.
Like the choosing of sex basically for the Oankali, and like they have like their own personal say when it happens. Like when the metamorphosis happens, like basically what sex they can choose.
Yeah.
And that has like severe consequences for like what they do in the future.
Yep.
There's like the whole reproduction thing of like 5 people, 3 genders, 2 different like species, and that creates like a new species.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have like an entryway into how you've been like exploring those themes in the book?
Well, yes. And I just want to say the last thing I want to talk about, which is not in this topic, but I think it's super fucking fascinating, is that Lilith just like, there's 2 things I want to talk about that I don't think we have time for. But one of them is when Akin has that moment where he's like blended with the whole Oankali species, like back on the like mothership.
Yeah.
And that's just like a fascinating scene. So that's like one thing I want to talk about because it's come up several times.
Okay.
In other books I'm reading. Maybe not this call, maybe future call. And the other thing is that like Lilith still has the like learn and run instinct. Like even though she's like in this society and like she's found her place, she's still holding on to that like learn and run drive, which is so common across the rest of Octavia Butler's books. Like Anyanwu and Wild Seed is like always running from Doro. Like, in the Parable series, the like
just constantly running.
The matriarch is like they're like always running. So this like learn and run thing, I just had never seen Octavia like write it out that explicitly. And when she did it, I was like, oh, that's the thing that happens in all the books.
Learn, run.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just putting those over there.
Yeah. Okay.
So this gender sexuality thing. So the first thing that I just noticed is because I don't know what Octavia's gender or what her sexuality lens is. But the fact that the Oankali human couples have 5, and it's like 2 males and 2 females, and then the third
Yeah.
Poloi that's like genderless.
Yeah.
It's like mad heteronormative.
Hmm.
I was just like, yo, as a queer black man, well, I guess my race is not relevant in this moment, but like as a queer person, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I, I don't know, again, I don't know what her analysis is, but from an Oankali perspective, that structure makes sense because of the creation of life.
Mm.
Like if you need
Yeah.
the different chromosomes from the different gender categories that we currently have, then that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Oankali have, I guess my critique or where I want to push is like, if the Oankali have the ability to like get into like the intricacies of DNA and mix DNA in really like fine-tuned ways, why could they not do that between like people of the same gender?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
couldn't they do that?
Yeah. I think that's a really, I was thinking back on Dawn. And I think, yeah, Dawn is very heteronormative as well. And at all the pairings of the humans after they like are awakened by Lilith, it's all male, female.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like we know, like as you said, like we know that the Oankali have the ability to just like take sperm and like store it in their like, I don't know, ship sperm bank thing,
Yeah.
and then do whatever the hell they want with it, like
Forever. Like they can just store it.
And they can like take prints of humans, like
Right.
like nothing about how like reproduction of humans happens before Oankali should require to be continued. Like there's no, it's like they can just do anything, they just mash it all up and
Yeah, it should be fine.
yeah. Huh. Um. Yeah, where I was going with the like the five,
Yeah.
the 5 like
Parents.
thing parents.
Yeah.
I don't think she was aiming for this, but it made me appreciate just like non-normative like household types and like who is raising whom and like what are all the different like adults that are involved in like the raising and formation of the child. And like I grew up with just my mom and my dad basically raising me. But I know so many friends who also had like grandmas and like grandpas and aunts and uncles that are like deeply engaged in their like upbringing, and I was always incredibly jealous of that because I feel like they just learned so much from having like a third or fourth perspective and like caregiver.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not sure if that's. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the parallels aren't quite there to what's going on in the Xenogenesis series because it seems like the parenting structure as the Oankali have created is simply for like reproduction.
Right.
It's really not for like nurturing of the child for the most part. Yeah, I guess there are some points in the book where like the like Akin is encouraged to hang out with like different parts of like family structure in order to like learn about himself.
Right.
Yeah, they never really quite talk about like, but why is that entire 5-unit thing necessary for like the creation of this adult?
Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting. It ties back to the thing you were talking about. Like, it ties back to your other question, just like, do humans need to have kids in order to feel that life is meaningful? Yeah. And I think one of the one of the things that the Oankali give to humans, other than the ability to reproduce when they're in the fivesome, is like sex. Like they can actually have, or the Oloi can stimulate in the minds of a human male and human female, just intercourse, like the activity of sex, which is pleasurable, and the sex is so good to the human.
Yeah.
And I think even if the humans could no longer actually have kids, the sex would be worth it. Like, so, to answer the question, I don't think it's necessarily kids that make life meaningful. If you can't have kids, you definitely need to be able to have sex. So, which is why it's extra awful that the resistors not only can't have kids, but can't have sex.
Yeah.
Like they just don't want sex.
Yeah.
But, okay, wait, where was I going with that? Why did I bring that up? Oh, the five thing. I want to say I hadn't made the connection to grandparents before. I'd made the connection to like, oh yeah, non-traditional family structures. And then I was like, wait, traditional family structures, like where the fuck did that come from? When did two parents and kids become the traditional model? Like in so few places in the world is that traditional.
Yeah.
Like how quickly we forget.
It doesn't even make sense.
Exactly. It doesn't even make sense. Like no one lives like that unless they like have to.
Yeah.
Like usually it's a situation of like forcedness in some way, like moved or because relationships are bad or whatever. Like even just the free child care of your parents with your kid is like so valuable. I know so many people right now who are moving back to be in proximity with their parents as they're having kids because they're like, yo.
Oh, that's what I plan to do. Yeah.
It's just like so bad. Anyway, so thanks for like sharing that because I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah.
But I do agree that it does seem like it's a side thought. It's like a side effect of the genetic
it's
drive. Which is interesting.
So I'll make sure we have time for your other 2 points you brought up because I
definitely don't.
Really, we don't.
But let's do some speculation about the next book and weave in this like learn and run thing. Wait, we ended the last one with a question. I forgot what it was. Do you remember what it was?
I don't.
Okay, well.
But I like that speculation about the next book.
Yeah.
So my first, I think the way the book is going to start, because Lilith's brood, and so it's all about like tracing the lineage of Lilith. Is that we're going to skip a generation. We're probably going to jump a generation to the future.
Okay.
And so we'll be looking at either Atkins' offspring or the offspring of the humans that can now have children again.
Oh.
So we're going to jump like right into this like Mars world.
Yeah.
And then maybe they've been there for like 20, 25 years. And that's going to be the starting point for us to like understand this, like what the fuck just happened when they went to Mars. So I really want this, but I don't think she's going to give us all like the juicy details of like humans landing on Mars and like setting up a tent and like starting to take trenches and I don't know what they're doing.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's my first picture.
Yeah. So my speculation is, so I have definitely read a little bit of the next book.
No.
So I'm not gonna say anything.
Don't tell me.
But the book, the copy that I'm reading has this. When you finish the book,
a bonus chapter.
The first chapter of Imago is just in it. So I was like, well, I can't not read this.
It's how it's meant to be read.
So I know a little bit, but what I want to speculate on is this learn and run. I really hope that like the resistor humans on Mars like stage a war or something like against the Oankali, because I just think that like that's, you know, in this hierarchy intelligence contradiction. Like I can only imagine that the humans on Mars will eventually be like, we are the ones who are higher in the hierarchy, and so we have to destroy difference. Isn't that ironic? Because the Oankali gave them a chance to exist. But what I hope happens is that, or I guess what I hope the resolution is that the humans somehow learn from the Oankali that they can, basically I hope that the humans breed out the hierarchy thing. I hope that they learn based on the model of the Oankali, which is like, you know, they have existed for a really long time.
Yeah.
Travel the galaxies in these crazy ships that like eat planets.
Yeah.
I hope that the humans learn that deep cooperation and deep interest and difference actually is the better strategy for perpetuation of the species. But I think we'll probably have to go through at least the beginnings of a war before we like get into a dire enough state again to recognize, like to actually do the learning. So anyways, that's what I hope happens.
Yeah, I love that prediction. So I feel like the humans so far we've seen are just the learn and run piece. They're learning how to, what we've seen so far, they've learned how to survive their oppressors, basically.
Right.
They've not learned how to survive themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Whew. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm very excited. Also, side note, speaking of N.K. Jemisin, did you hear the latest, or there's a recent episode of the Ezra Klein show where Ezra interviews her?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Whoa, wait, I gotta get that.
Yeah, you definitely gotta get on that. And the bonus is that at the end, you know, there's the section at the end where it's like, you know, recommend 3 books to the audience.
Yeah.
One of the books she recommends is 2 previously unpublished Octavia Butler stories. So you can like buy them on Amazon via Kindle. They're like 2 new stories that like someone went through her archives and like dug the stories up and like published them. So there's like new Octavia Butler in the world.
Oh my gosh.
Open in a tab on my computer right now, and I'm gonna buy and read.
Wait, can you send me them?
Yes.
Oh, that's so dope.
Right now. Yeah. Okay, anyways. I'm hungry.
Yeah, me too.
It's time to go.
This is
great.
I'm looking forward to next time.
Same.
We have a bigger group. I hope. Yeah, it should be. Yeah, I'm excited to see what the dynamics could be like, and like what they're gonna bring, and it's really great.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped. All right. Well, I guess till next time. We should talk about when.
Yeah.
It's like a month long enough to read the next book.
Let's see. So like around
like mid-October?
Yeah, that should be fine for me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Great. All right.
All right.
Well, till next time.
Yeah, talk to you later. Have a good last day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.